Yeah, so when I said the Bulls were going to have a tough schedule going forward, I wasn't kidding. In fact, I believe the Bulls have the second hardest strength of schedule to close out the season behind the Milwaukee Bucks. And this week is no exception to that, where the Bulls are going to be playing three of the teams that are slated to be the Bulls' main competitors going into the playoffs. Well, actually, I'm looking at the schedule now. I thought for some reason the Bulls were going to be playing the Sixers on Sunday. That's actually not until Monday. So we'll hold off on that game until next week's preview. But either way, the Bulls have 3 games this week, all against tough opponents, starting with the Miami Heat tonight in Miami. This is a chance for the Bulls to take a full game on a team sitting in front of them in the East. Then the Bulls are actually off until Thursday, which is great because this week is actually going to be insane for me at work. And it's great because the Bulls could use some rest. They'll be facing the Hawks in Atlanta, which, yes, the Bulls have made good work of the Hawks and have beaten them 3 times already this season, but they are still a talented team and played a hard-fought game against the Bulls just last week and did so without John Collins. Of course, Ayo was great on Trae Young in that game, and really any time that they've faced against each other, he's done a great job. Then, in probably the most anticipated game for Bulls fans anyway, the Bulls will be hosting the Milwaukee Bucks for the first time since that Grayson Allen cheap shot on Alex Caruso, and I have a feeling it's going to be a hostile environment at the United Center for that game. I honestly wish that I was going to be there to see it. I'm sure Allen is going to get booed every time he touches the ball. I hope so anyway. But anyway, in this video, we're going to be going over each of these games, keys to each of them, as well as my predictions for the week. And I want to hear your guys' predictions as well. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. So as I mentioned, the Bulls kick off their week later tonight against the Miami Heat. And this is going to be a big test for the Bulls because they need to end this narrative that the Bulls can't beat the elite teams in the NBA, that the Bulls are pretenders because they can beat teams below 500, but when it comes to facing the best teams in the league, their record is pretty poor. I said before, context is needed for that because they've been dealing with a lot of injuries in these games. But the fact still remains, the Bulls still haven't been able to beat a lot of these top teams in the league, and the Heat are no exception to that. The Bulls lost their first 2 games that they played Miami, and one of the losses, the Heat did so without Jimmy and Bam. Now, the Miami Heat currently have the #1 seed in the East. They're a full game ahead of the Bulls, so if the Bulls are able to win this, they'll be back to being tied for first. Now, for the Heat, they're fully healthy now. Jimmy Butler is fully back, playing really well. Same with Bam Adebayo after he missed a good amount of time at the beginning of the season. And the biggest challenge for the Bulls that they ran into the last time they played the Heat was their inability to respond to the Heat's zone defense when Eric Spoelstra made that switch. Like, let's not kid ourselves in that matchup, or both those matchups really. Spo outcoached Billy Donovan in both of those games because he was quickly able to recognize the Bulls' weaknesses on offense, made adjustments, and Billy Donovan didn't know how to respond to it. Now, you would hope that after seeing the Bulls get handled on defense like they did the last 2 times around, you would hope that Donovan has been working with the guys in practice to actually figure out a way to counter a zone defense when they see it. Like, probably something that you should work on when it killed you in the limited periods where you have seen zone defense this season. But we'll have to wait and see on that. The other thing to look out for, and really the thing that worries me the most about this game, is the matchup between Bam and Vucevic. Like, in the few seasons that Bam has been in the league, he has absolutely destroyed Nikola Vucevic with his versatility and athleticism. And I mean that on both ends of the floor, because Bam, who was once really known more for his elite defense and rim protection, has turned into a great player on offense, averaging 19 points per game, 10.3 rebounds, and even developed a bit of a jumper. Still doesn't shoot threes, like, at all, hasn't made a single 3 this season, but overall he continues to develop in being one of the better big men in the league. And Vucevic is going to be in for a tough night trying to work against him in the post. Obviously, Jimmy Butler is always going to be a challenge. He's having an incredible season, another all-star selection, really doing everything on both ends for the Heat, and has been leading that team, right, to the Heat's best record in the East. I'll be curious to see if Billy keeps DeMar on Jimmy, or if he'll actually try to switch it up and maybe have Ayo defend Butler. I mean, it's really unfortunate the Bulls are without their best defenders in Alex Caruso, Lonzo Ball, and Patrick Williams, because then when you go against a player like Jimmy Butler, who probably isn't the best matchup for someone like DeMar DeRozan to guard, you're kind of out of options when Lavine and DeRozan aren't the best defenders, so you kind of have to resort to someone like Ayo. I guess you could have Derrick Jones Jr. on Jimmy. That could be an interesting matchup as well. Besides, you're probably going to need Ayo on Tyler Hero anyway, who is likely going to be winning the 6th Man of the Year award with his scoring ability. It's another guy you have to watch out for from outside with his three-point shooting ability. The guy's averaging over 20 points per game. He's another problem. And of course, you cannot forget the veteran Kyle Lowry, who is their main facilitator and vocal leader on the court. It's going to be a tough game for the Bulls, that's for sure. Then the Bulls will take on the Hawks again on Thursday, playing the Hawks 1 week apart from their last time around at the United Center. This one will be in Atlanta. And really for this one, because it's fresh in our minds, first and foremost, Ayo just needs to keep doing what he's been doing on Trae Young because it's working. The dude simply struggles to score when Ayo is on him. Second, don't let Danilo Gallinari and Bogdan Bogdanovic look like all-stars out there putting on a clinic on offense like they did the last game. And then finally, and I think this is important because John Collins wasn't available in the last game that they played, but is slated to be back by then. I really think Billy Donovan should explore putting Tristan Thompson at the 4 and having him be on the floor at the same time as Vucevic. Like I said, I love Javonte Green. He's one of my favorite players. I've said he's the Bulls' most underrated player. But when you're going against some of these bigger power forwards in the league, guys like John Collins, who is 6'10", I said it in the game against the Grizzlies as well when they were going against Jaren Jackson Jr., who is 6'11", like Javonte just isn't a good matchup for these guys. They tower over him, even though he plays much bigger than his height. See what Thompson can do, at least test it out anyway, and if it doesn't work, fine, you go back to the old rotation. It's just that the Bulls have really struggled against these big front court teams this season, and it's great that we finally signed a guy who gives us some more size, but if you're only going to have him just be a backup to Vucevic, that still leaves a hole at the 4 spot. It's probably not going to happen. I don't really see Billy Donovan testing this out, not yet anyway. But again, a big athletic 4 in John Collins on top of Clint Capella, it's going to give the Bulls problems. That was kind of a quick one, at least covering the Hawks game, but we did just see the Hawks, and it's because I want to talk about the main event for this week, and that's the Bulls taking on the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, listen, for any of you attending this game at the United Center, you guys better be going crazy on every single play and possession in this game. I want you shouting at Grayson Allen, but not even just Grayson Allen, also the guys who stood behind him and defended that ridiculous play. I'm talking about guys like Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, who said that they didn't agree with the flagrant 2 call and that they didn't think it was a dirty play at all. Hell, the Bucks franchise came out with a statement after the league announced that they suspended Grayson Allen for 1 game, saying they disagreed with the league's decision and that they stand by Grayson Allen. F this franchise, man. The crowd needs to be going crazy in this one, making it a hostile environment. That being said, though, I still do love Giannis, and the Bulls are still not going to have an answer for him. You know, when you're likely going to see Javonte Green on him, this is, again, another one of those games where I would like to see Billy use Tristan Thompson at the 4 a bit. It's still not going to stop Giannis, but let's be real, it's something at least, a bigger body who can at least clean the glass and help out a bit on defense. I mean, the Bucks now have Serge Ibaka, who is nothing like the old Serge Ibaka, but he's still a force in the paint with his rim protection. And also they have Chris Middleton too. Like, this is a big team. It's no wonder people have talked about the Bulls not really being a threat to the Bucks. I don't entirely agree with that statement because the Bulls played well against the Bucks in Milwaukee and nearly won that game despite not having Zach Lavine, Javonte Green, Derrick Jones Jr., and of course, Alex Caruso got injured halfway through the game despite finishing it with a broken hand. But man, this is a big team. The Bulls are going to need strong defense from guys like Vucevic and Thompson, and you're going to need to have picture-perfect games from guys like DeMar DeRozan and Zach Lavine on offense. Cannot be a game where they have missteps, which especially for DeMar is pretty rare for him to have an off game. The game against the Grizzlies was one of the first that we've seen in a while where he had an off shooting night. That can't happen against the Bucks. You need those guys to be on, and I think that's what would make a series against the Bucks a difficult one, because in order for the Bulls to win in a 7-game series against Milwaukee, they have to be on their A game for every single one of them. I am looking forward to seeing the matchup between Ayo and Drew Holiday, though. I've seen a lot of people drawing comparisons of Ayo's game to Drew's, actually. You know, and the Ayo's ceiling in the league is Drew Holiday, which I'm sure as Bulls fans, we'd like to think that it's a little higher than that, but it's still a pretty great comparison. I actually can see that, especially if Ayo can continue to develop his game on offense. So looking forward to that matchup, and I'm really, really looking forward to this game. I don't think there's ever been a game where I've been looking for more revenge than I have in this one. It's also going to be on ESPN, which will be great. As for my predictions for the week, so 3 games, 2 on the road, 1 back-to-back. You guys know I always tend to be on the optimistic side with my predictions, but with still no Lonzo, no Caruso in the lineup, think the Bulls are likely going to go 1-2 this week with their only win against the Hawks. The Bulls match up well against the Hawks, and as long as Io continues to do what he's been doing and staying in front of Trae Young, the Bulls should be able to leave Atlanta with a win. But the games against the Heat and the Bucks, I'm just not too confident about. And to be honest, I actually would have said that the Bulls would beat the Bucks this week, but it's the second game of a back-to-back and a traveling back-to-back, and those are always hard games to come out and play with the same level of energy and effort. But I want to know what you guys think. How do you think the Bulls will do this week? Let me know in the comments. I'll have a live chat for the game tonight against the Heat, so feel free to join that if you'd like. Until then, guys, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.